For decades we've had this one cultural anthem just kind of beaten into our heads when it comes to
Yeah, oh,
relationships.
absolutely. It's everywhere.
Right.
Mhm.
Like the Beatles sang it. Every romantic comedy from the last, I don't know, 40 years rests its entire plot on it.
We all know the words.
Exactly. All you need is love.
Yeah.
It's simple, it's poetic, and it just feels fundamentally true, you
It
know?
does. It really does. You picture this bottomless well of love that you can just draw from to fix any marital problem.
Yeah, like if things get rocky, you just look deep into each other's eyes, remember why you fell in love, and poof.
The conflict dissolves.
Right. Conflict is just gone.
It's the universal, culturally approved cure-all. Like if you're fighting about finances or if you're drifting apart because of the kids, the prescribed solution is almost always to just love each other more.
Go on a date night.
Exactly. Go on a date night, reconnect with that spark. It's a very comforting narrative because it implies that as long as the emotion of love is present, the relationship is bulletproof.
But then, and this is where it gets scary, you look at the reality of modern relationships, and suddenly that beautiful, poetic narrative starts to show some really terrifying structural cracks.
Oh, huge cracks.
I mean, we are looking at a landscape where roughly 50% of marriages end in divorce.
It's a staggering number.
It really is. And if you talk to couples going through it, or, if you look at the clinical data, a huge number of these people didn't stop loving each other.
Right. The love is actually still there.
The love is there, but the marriage is in ashes anyway. So here is the core paradox we are tackling in today's deep dive.
And it's a big one.
It is. What if the advice, all you need is love, is actually incomplete to the point of being destructive?
Wow. Yeah.
Like, what if a massive percentage of those failed relationships are ending not because of a lack of love, but a lack of a completely different, entirely unacknowledged ingredient?
It completely flips the script on how we are taught to interact with each other.
It really does.
Today, we're decoding the hidden, often incredibly frustrating language of male-female relationships.
Which we all need help with, let's be honest.
Right. And we're doing this through a framework that suggests we are fundamentally starving half the population of the exact psychological resource they need to survive.
Simply because we've been conditioned to only offer them love.
Exactly.
So our mission for you today, whether you are happily married, engaged, newly dating, or honestly just trying to figure out why you constantly miscommunicate with half the people in your life, is to give you a practical, actionable shortcut.
A real tool you can use.
Yeah, we are looking for that specific aha moment that can stop those cyclical, exhausting Tuesday night arguments right in their tracks.
Those are the worst kind of arguments.
They really are.
Yeah.
So our source material today is a fascinating stack of research, anecdotes, and excerpts built around Dr. Emerson Eggerichs' seminal book, Love and Respect. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to understand the sheer weight of this framework, we actually have to start with the author's own background.
Right, because this wasn't born in some sterile laboratory.
Not at all. Eggerichs grew up in a deeply broken, highly volatile household. His parents went through this brutal cycle.
They divorced and remarried each other, right?
Yes. They divorced, they remarried each other, they separated again. He vividly describes the pervasive tension in the house, the constant yelling.
Just a really tough environment for a kid.
Incredibly tough.
Mm.
He talks about crying himself to sleep as a child while his parents literally tore each other apart in the next room.
Man, that's heavy. And when he grew up and started analyzing his parents' dynamic through a more clinical adult lens, he noticed a very specific pattern of behavior that was driving all that chaos.
He did. He looked at his mother, who was a really dynamic, highly independent woman for her era.
She taught acrobatics and dance, I think.
Right. She generated her own income, and she regularly made significant financial and household decisions completely independently.
Like without even consulting his father.
Exactly. Which, through a modern lens, just sounds like a highly capable, autonomous woman managing her life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that independence.
No, of course not. But the devastating part was how it played out in their specific marital dynamic. Her unilateral actions made his father feel completely bypassed and insignificant.
Like you didn't even matter.
Right. He felt like a non-entity in his own home, which translated directly into a profound feeling of being disrespected.
And because the father felt this deep existential disrespect, his immediate reaction was to lash out defensively.
That's the tragic part.
He would become angry, cold, and intensely unloving. And then that unloving reaction would boomerang back and utterly crush the mother's spirit.
Because at her core, she was desperately crying out for his love and affection.
Right. She would literally exit the room just weeping and entirely defeated.
So you have this mother who is psychologically starving for love and a father who is psychologically starving for respect.
Neither one is getting what they need.
Exactly. So they just keep weaponizing their pain against each other. This childhood trauma really became the engine for Eggerichs's lifelong search for a marital solution.
And his breakthrough actually came from analyzing a historical religious text, right?
Yes, he bases his entire psychological framework on a single verse from the Bible, specifically Ephesians 5:33.
And looking strictly at the psychological framework he extracts from this text, I mean, the distinction it draws is wild.
It really is.
We're looking at the underlying mechanics here, not taking a theological stance, but the phrasing used in the original Greek is the entire key to his theory. What exactly does this text lay out?
So the verse provides two distinct instructions. It instructs a husband to love his wife unconditionally, and it instructs a wife to respect her husband.
Okay.
From this, Eggerichs extracts a foundational premise. Women and men have vastly different primary driving psychological needs.
Meaning?
A wife's deepest need is to feel loved. A husband's deepest need is to feel respected.
The fascinating part is when he digs into the original Greek language used in that text. When the instruction is given to the husband to love, the specific Greek word used is agape.
Right. And agape is a very heavy, unconditional type of love.
It's not just a fleeting feeling.
No, it is a love of the will. It's a love that persists and does not depend on the other person's actions, moods, or behavior. It's constant.
But the text does not command the wife to agape love her husband.
Which is super interesting.
Which, if love is the universal cure-all, like we were saying earlier, seems like a glaring omission.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't she be commanded to love him unconditionally too?
Well, Eggerichs argues that women aren't commanded to do this because they are already naturally wired for agape love.
Oh, like it's built in.
Exactly. The biological and psychological inclination toward nurture, deep emotional attachment, and compassionate care, it's largely their default operating system.
You don't need a mandate to do something that is already natural to you.
Right. A mother doesn't need to be commanded to unconditionally love her newborn. It's just a visceral reality. However, there is a second Greek word for love that is incredibly relevant here, and that's phileo.
Like Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love.
Yes. It's friendly love. It's the feeling of actually liking the person you are hanging out with.
And that's the vital distinction, isn't it?
It is, because while a wife rarely loses her deep, unconditional agape love for her family, the daily, relentless grind of life, the mortgage, the laundry, the pediatrician appointments, the sheer fatigue that can absolutely decimate her filial love.
She loses the friendliness.
Exactly. The warmth just evaporates. She can become highly impatient, hypercritical, or adopt a scolding tone.
But if you asked her, do you love your husband?
Hmm.
She would say, of course I'd die for him.
Absolutely. But she has completely stopped acting like she likes him.
It's that dynamic of, I love you, but you are driving me absolutely crazy right now, and I can't stand the way you chew your food.
Yes, we've all been there.
And this leads to the massive, paradigm-shifting secret of this entire framework. The text points out that a husband's mandate is to love his wife, even if she is being openly disrespectful and critical.
And a wife's mandate is to respect her husband even if he is being unloving and emotionally distant.
They are mutually exclusive mandates. They aren't conditional transactions.
And that completely breaks the standard rules of engagement for modern relationships, where everything is a negotiation. Like, I'll do this for you if you do this for me.
Let me use an analogy here because I think it helps visualize this for you if you're listening. Think of a marriage, like a dual-engine airplane flying at 30,000 feet.
Okay, I like this.
One engine is designed to run exclusively on high-octane aviation fuel. We'll call that fuel love.
Makes sense.
The other engine is built entirely differently. It requires a highly specific synthetic oil to function. We'll call that oil respect.
Right.
If you deprive either engine of its specific required resource, the whole plane is going down. It does not matter if you have 10,000 extra gallons of high-octane love fuel. If the other engine has no respect oil, it seizes up and you are crashing into the mountain.
You cannot substitute one for the other.
Exactly.
And yet, that is exactly what couples spend decades trying to do.
It's so tragic.
It is. The husband is sitting in the cockpit, arms crossed, thinking, I will gladly pour some unconditional love into her engine, just as soon as she shows me a drop of respect.
Meanwhile, the wife is sitting next to him thinking, I will absolutely show him respect right after he proves he loves me unconditionally.
They're literally playing a game of chicken while the plane falls out of the sky.
So if the plane is going down, what does that crash actually look like in our day-to-day lives? Because it's rarely a cinematic explosion, is it?
No, it's usually a slow, agonizing descent over something incredibly mundane.
Like who left the sponge in the sink?
Precisely. Eggerichs coined a brilliant term for this mechanical loop of conflict, and he calls it the crazy cycle.
The crazy cycle.
Yes, and the mechanics are brutally, tragically simple. Without love from him, she reacts without respect. Without respect from her, he reacts without love, ad nauseum.
Around and around, faster and faster.
Until neither can even remember how the fight started.
And it is the sheer dailiness of life that fuels this cycle. The sources provided these highly specific, almost uncomfortably relatable anecdotes from the author's own marriage to his wife, Sarah.
Which is so vulnerable of him to share.
It is. These aren't stories of infidelity or massive betrayals. They are micro-collisions.
Let's examine the jean jacket story, because
Okay.
this is a perfect example.
I love this one.
So this takes place during Emerson and Sarah's first Christmas together as a married couple.
Nice dates. First Christmas.
Exactly. Sarah, who is very crafty and expressive, had spent weeks secretly making him a customized jean jacket. She was pouring her time, her creativity, and her love into this garment.
She's expecting a big reaction.
Christmas morning arrives. He opens the box, holds up the jacket, nods, says a polite thank you, and sets it down, seeming perfectly content.
Which, if you are a guy, seems like a totally normal, acceptable reaction. Got a jacket, you said thanks, mission
Yeah.
accomplished.
Right. But to Sarah, who is wearing her heart on her sleeve and has attached all of her marital devotion to this denim, a polite thank you is basically a declaration of war.
Oh, man.
In her family culture, you show vibrant enthusiasm, you gasp, you put it on immediately, you say, this is incredible, it's exactly what I wanted.
So when Emerson just offers a stoic nod,
Her internal narrative instantly spirals. She assumes he hates it. She tells him point blank, you don't like it.
and he's probably so confused.
He is entirely perplexed. He insists, no, I do like it, it's nice. But she pushes back harder, telling him that if he actually liked it, he would be excited.
So we have to look at the psychological tectonic plates shifting beneath this argument. Because it's obviously not about the jacket. What is actually happening in the crazy cycle here?
Beneath the surface, Sarah is feeling completely unvalued and ultimately unloved. She extended a piece of her heart, and his lack of expected performative enthusiasm feels like a direct rejection of her love.
Her love engine is sputtering.
Sputtering and dying. But switch to his perspective. He is sitting there on Christmas morning, suddenly being interrogated and judged for not performing his gratitude to an arbitrary, unspoken standard.
He feels like he's failing a test he didn't know he was taking.
Yes. He feels unacceptable. In short, he feels profoundly disrespected.
And this dynamic doesn't just happen in the privacy of the living room. It bleeds into their social lives.
The car ride story.
Yes, the car ride story. They are driving home at night after attending a small group Bible study. Now, Sarah is a highly social, energetic, extroverted processor. Emerson is much more analytical, quiet, and observant.
Just different personality types.
Right. They get into the enclosed space of the car, and Sarah just unleashes a torrent of critique. She tells him he was acting bored, that his silence makes him look aloof and intimidates people, and that he needs to stop being so absorbed in himself.
She wants him to actually draw people out in conversation.
As she's delivering this critique, her passion is escalating, and her volume is going steadily up. She is aggressively coaching him.
And how does he respond? He sits there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, feeling completely put down, emasculated, and attacked.
It's awful.
Finally, he quietly turns to her and delivers a devastating line. He says, "You can be right, but wrong at the top of your voice."
Ouch. It's such a brutal, accurate assessment of her delivery. But the tragic irony here is that Sarah genuinely believes she is helping him.
That's the crazy part. In her mind, she is lovingly correcting a social blind spot to help him integrate better.
But because she completely lacks the filio, the friendly respecting, her delivery is acting like a blowtorch to his spirit.
Exactly. He doesn't hear a helpful wife. He hears unadulterated contempt.
And the crazy cycle thrives on that exact misunderstanding, but nothing accelerates the cycle quite like a covert operation.
Oh, this brings us to the forgotten birthday.
This one is painful to read.
Sarah decides to run a little psychological experiment. Leading up to her birthday, she intercepts the mail and hides every single birthday card sent by friends and family. just to see if Emerson will remember the date entirely on his own, without any visual cues.
Which is just a spectacular way to detonate your own weekend. I mean, treating your marriage like a CIA sting operation is never, ever going to end with a nice dinner and a glass of wine. It is a guaranteed disaster.
It is the ultimate trap. And Emerson, who is deeply absorbed in his work and notoriously foggy on dates, walks right into it.
He completely forgets.
He completely forgets. The day arrives, they happen to be at dinner, and Sarah, holding on to this grenade, softly asks across the table if he happened to celebrate her birthday with his colleague at lunch that day.
You can just feel the sheer panic, the absolute stomach-dropping realization of a spouse who knows they have crossed a point of no return.
He describes the physical sensation perfectly. The blood entirely draining to his feet, pooling there for a second, and then rocketing straight up into his face in a hot flash of guilt.
Now, objectively, he was dead wrong to forget his wife's birthday.
Sure. And Sarah is entirely justified in feeling deeply hurt. In her mind, this forgetfulness is undeniable proof that she is unloved, that she isn't even a priority on his mental radar.
But simultaneously, because this was a deliberate setup,
Yep.
he is experiencing a very complex reaction.
Right, he feels guilty, but he also feels hunted.
Exactly.
Ah.
He didn't maliciously choose to forget her birthday to inflict pain. He just forgot. So while he owns the guilt of the mistake, the revelation that she actively hid the mail to test him makes him feel deeply judged, manipulated, and disrespected.
The trap itself was an act of disrespect.
So we see the cycle in full terrifying motion. He does something careless like forgetting a date or underreacting to a jacket, and she feels a sharp pang of being unloved.
And she reacts to that pain with criticism, coaching, or covert tests.
He experiences that reaction as profound disrespect. To protect himself, he withdraws and gets quiet. His withdrawal makes her feel even more unloved.
The cycle spins faster.
But the author introduces a mechanism to jam the gears of this cycle, a concept called assuming goodwill.
This is the vital cognitive shift. Assuming goodwill is the deliberate, active choice to believe that underneath all the friction, the annoyances, and the crossed wires, your partner genuinely loves you and has good intentions.
Okay, I understand the theory, but let's pressure test this against the story about the black pepper on the eggs, because this story drove me absolutely crazy.
It's a polarizing one.
Emerson specifically states he hates black pepper on his eggs. Over the course of their marriage, he has told Sarah hundreds of times, clearly and directly, please do not put pepper on my eggs.
Hundreds of times.
Yet, almost every single time she cooks him breakfast, she peppers the eggs. And to make it worse, she sometimes mutters, well, they just aren't any good without pepper.
Right.
If someone did that to me after I asked them 100 times to stop, I wouldn't assume goodwill. I would assume they were a culinary supervillain doing it out of pure spiteful malice.
It's hard not to.
Isn't she genuinely just disrespecting his stated boundaries? Why should he have to assume goodwill when she is blatantly ignoring him?
It's the most natural human reaction to view it as intentional sabotage. The crazy cycle trains us to keep a rigid scorecard of offenses.
Yeah, tallying up the pepper incidents.
But Eggerichs forces us to zoom out and look at the actual context of a Tuesday morning. When Sarah is at the stove cooking those eggs, she is not plotting his demise.
She's just busy.
She is on autopilot. Her brain is processing 1,000 different logistical threads, the kids' school schedules, the grocery list, her own internal anxieties. When her hand reaches for the pepper shaker, it is pure muscle memory.
Because she likes pepper.
She likes pepper, she seasons her own food with pepper, and she just does it.
So she's not thinking, take that, Emerson. She's just not thinking about the pepper at all.
Precisely. And this is where the hard work of marriage happens. Emerson had to make a conscious, disciplined choice every time he looked down at those speckled eggs.
He had to reframe it.
He had to decide to believe that his wife was not waking up trying to ruin his breakfast. He had to realize that the issue, the pepper on the eggs, the wet towel left on the bed, the cabinet doors left open, is almost never the real issue.
The real issue is the malicious intent we assign to those actions.
Exactly. If he interprets the pepper as calculated disrespect, his respect engine fails and he lashes out. If she interprets his wet towel on the bed as a message that he views her as a maid, her love engine fails and she attacks.
The absolute breakthrough happens when you actively choose to interpret your partner's actions through a lens of goodwill, believing they aren't actively trying to wound you.
It changes everything.
But what happens when assuming goodwill isn't enough? Because even if you try your hardest to assume the best intentions, if you are fundamentally interpreting the world differently, you're still going to crash.
That's the deeper layer.
Why are we so notoriously bad at communicating what the real issue is? Why can't we just say, hey, I'm feeling insecure about our connection today. Could you show me some affection?
Because, as the research powerfully illustrates, men and women aren't just miscommunicating, they are literally speaking in entirely different coded languages.
Eggerichs uses the brilliant imagery of pink and blue languages.
This visual is so helpful. Imagine that women are born wearing pink-tinted sunglasses and wearing pink hearing aids.
Okay, pink filters.
Every piece of data they take in, every look, every word, every silence is filtered through a pink lens of relationships, emotional connection, and love.
Got it.
Men, on the other hand, are born wearing blue-tinted sunglasses and blue hearing aids. They filter that exact same data through a blue lens of hierarchy, achievement, respect, and problem solving.
So they are taking in the exact same information.
They can stand in the exact same room, witness the exact same event, and walk away with entirely different, completely valid realities.
The classic low-stakes example of this pink and blue translation error is the phrase, I have nothing to wear.
Oh, this happens in every house.
A couple is getting ready for a party. She stands in front of a closet packed with clothes and says, I have nothing to wear. Through her pink filter, what she actually means is, I have nothing new.
Right. She wants an outfit that makes her feel beautiful, confident, and appropriate for this specific social connection.
And when a man stands in front of his closet and says, I have nothing to wear, through his blue filter, he means something radically different.
He means I have nothing clean.
It is a purely logistical, problem-solving statement.
It is the exact same sequence of words, but the meaning is entirely dependent on the filter.
And while that's funny, when it's about laundry, it gets incredibly dark and damaging when the emotional stakes are higher. Let's look at the 10th anniversary card story, because this is where the pink and blue languages turn into actual weapons.
This is a painfully common scenario. So a couple is approaching their 10th wedding anniversary.
Big milestone.
Yes. Now, this husband has a historical track record of forgetting dates or buying last-minute thoughtless gifts, but this year he's determined to get it right.
He's turning over a new leaf.
He remembers well in advance. He goes to the store, spends 20 minutes in the aisle, and finds a card with a beautiful poetic message that he feels perfectly captures his deep feelings for his wife.
He puts actual effort in.
He buys it, signs it with little hearts, and hands it to her that evening. Through his blue glasses, he has solved the problem, achieved the goal, and demonstrated his devotion.
He is standing there, practically waiting for a marching band to come out and celebrate his victory.
He is so proud. She takes the envelope, opens it, and beams with happiness as she reads the beautiful printed message inside. And then she reaches the top of the card and her face just drops.
Oh, no.
The temperature in the room instantly plummets to freezing. He feels the shift immediately and asks, "What's wrong?" She gives him the absolute worst word a husband can hear in that moment. Nothing.
The deadly nothing.
He presses her, knowing it's not nothing, and she finally coldly says, "Well, the message is really nice for a birthday card."
Oh, wow. He bought a birthday card for their milestone 10th anniversary.
Yes. He grabs the card, looks at the bold happy birthday at the top that he somehow completely missed and groans. He says, "Oh man, I was just reading the poem inside. Honest mistake. Give me a break."
But you have to look at this through her pink sunglasses.
Through her filter of relationship and connection, this is not an honest clerical error. This is a devastating revelation.
She feels completely, utterly unloved.
She looks at him and says, "If someone put a pinstripe on your car that was a fraction of an inch off, you would notice immediately because you love your car, you don't care about this anniversary, and you don't care about me."
It escalates from a wrong piece of cardboard to a total character assassination in 10 seconds.
It does. But what is happening behind his blue sunglasses? Because he doesn't see a woman expressing pain.
What does he see?
Through his blue filter, he does not see a wife crying out for reassurance and love. He sees a woman showing him pure, unadulterated contempt.
Because he tried.
Exactly. He is thinking, "I tried. I remembered the date. I bought a gift. I found a poem that expressed my feelings. I made a tiny logistical error at the top of the card, and suddenly my entire character is being shredded and I'm being compared to a car."
He feels profoundly inadequate and completely disrespected.
So his blue fight or flight response kicks in. He yells back, "Well, I'm glad I got you a birthday card." And he storms out of the house, slamming the door.
You have two good-willed people who desperately want a nice evening, and it ends in a nuclear fallout entirely because of crossed pink and blue wires.
It's so sad. And there is another brutal example in the material that highlights how physical intimacy gets tangled in these wires. The returning businessman.
Oh, this one is tough.
It perfectly illustrates the domino effect of these translations. The husband has been traveling for business all week. He's exhausted from flights, layovers, and meetings, but he is genuinely excited to get back to his sanctuary.
He just wants to be home.
As his plane lands, he is fantasizing about walking through the door to a warm embrace and having a romantic, sexually intimate evening with his wife to reconnect.
Sounds nice in theory.
He finally pulls into the driveway, grabs his bags, opens the front door, and what happens?
Before he can even set his suitcase on the floor, he is hit with a tidal wave of domestic logistics.
She doesn't even say hello. She hits him with, "Why are you home early? I'm not ready. Can you go pick up the kids?" The teacher called about Billy's behavior today. It was a nightmare. You need to pick up the dry cleaning on the way back, and dinner is going to be late because my sister is coming over to vent about her boyfriend.
The romantic, intimate fantasy is just shattered into a million pieces on the entryway rug.
He is standing there completely deflated. Through his blue glasses, he feels entirely unappreciated.
Right, he's been working hard.
He's been out slaying dragons to provide for the family. He returns to his castle, and he is immediately treated like an errand boy who is in the way. He feels disrespected.
So his defense mechanism kicks in.
On his way back out the door to get the dry cleaning, he mutters a highly sarcastic remark. "Wow, great to see you too after a week." Really feeling the love.
But now, let's look at her pink glasses.
Yes, let's look at her reality. She is exhausted. She's been holding down the fort, managing the kids, the house, and the crises entirely alone for 5 days. She is drowning in stress.
When she hears that sarcastic comment, she thinks, what right does he have to be sarcastic? I am drowning here, and he's complaining about his greeting.
That sarcasm lands squarely on her pink filter as a lack of love and empathy. Fast forward to later that night. They are finally in bed, the lights are off. He reaches over and begins rubbing her back.
This is his clumsy blue language attempt to initiate physical intimacy and try to salvage the connection he wanted all day.
And how does she respond to the back rub?
She stiffens up, groans, and says, "Don't. I'm way too tired for this."
He rolls over furious. She hears his angry sigh and says, "You're being so insensitive."
And that is the spark that blows the powder keg.
He explodes. He sits up and says, "Insensitive! I come home from a grueling week. You greet me with a massive to-do list. You deny me any affection. And now I'm the insensitive one. Am I just a paycheck to you? Am I just a meal ticket?"
And she fires right back. "You didn't even ask how my week was. You didn't ask how I was doing. All you want me for is sex."
It is a complete systemic catastrophe. But the underlying mechanics of this fight become incredibly clear when Eggerichs introduces one of his most powerful visual analogies. The air hose.
The air hose makes all this sudden panic make sense.
Imagine that every wife has an invisible air hose connected to a scuba tank on her back, and that tank is labeled love. Every husband has an air hose connected to a tank labeled respect.
This is how they breathe psychologically.
Picture this viscerally if you're listening right now. You are 70 feet underwater, scuba diving. Everything is peaceful. Suddenly, someone swims by and steps heavily on your air hose.
The oxygen stops. You are instantly suffocating. Are you going to gently, politely tap that person on the shoulder and calmly ask, "Excuse me, would you mind terribly stepping off my hose?"
No, you are going to panic. Your eyes are going to go wide. You are going to thrash around wildly, and you are going to start swinging your arms to get them off you.
You are going to fight for your very life, and that is exactly what is happening in the living room during these arguments.
When the husband hands her the wrong anniversary card, his carelessness accidentally steps heavily on her love air hose. She can't breathe.
So she panics.
She thrashes around, verbally bringing up the car, attacking his character, just trying to get him off her hose so she can feel loved again.
But when she attacks his character, those sharp, flailing words step directly onto his respect air hose.
Now he is suffocating. He panics, and his survival instinct is to flee, so he storms out of the house.
And in the businessman story, she accidentally steps on his respect hose by greeting him with chores instead of honor.
He panics and thrashes by using sarcasm. That sarcasm steps on her love hose.
She panics and thrashes by denying him physical intimacy. It is just two desperate people suffocating each other while desperately trying to catch a breath.
Which brings us to an incredibly important, complex question. If we know, biologically and psychologically, that men need respect to breathe, if we understand that their air hose is connected entirely to that tank, why is it so incredibly difficult culturally and personally for women to just give it to them?
Exactly. If respect is the magical synthetic oil that keeps the male engine running, why is it so frequently withheld? This suffocating feeling brings us to a massive systemic cultural roadblock that the book highlights. We have a fundamental problem with the R word.
It's true. Think about the concept of unconditional love. It is widely accepted, celebrated, and expected in our culture, especially among women.
Right.
If you sit a woman down and tell her a successful marriage requires you to love your husband unconditionally through his flaws, she will nod. It makes intuitive sense. It is her mother tongue.
But if you take that exact same sentence and you put the word unconditional in front of the word respect,
It is treated like an absolute oxymoron. It does not compute.
I hear this phrase all the time, from friends, in media, everywhere. Respect has to be earned. He has to earn my respect. I will love him, but I won't respect him until he acts respectable.
Precisely. Wives frequently operate under the deeply ingrained belief that while love is a free, beautiful gift you give by default, respect is a strict wage that is paid out only for good, verifiable behavior.
Like a paycheck.
Yes. And Eggerichs points out how deeply woven this is into the fabric of our culture. Look at something as simple as the greeting card industry.
This observation blew my mind when I read it. The author notes that women buy the vast, overwhelming majority of greeting cards.
And card companies are not running charities. They are purely profit-driven machines. They print what sells based on relentless market research.
Right, and you can walk into any pharmacy, go to the romance section, and you will never, ever find a greeting card from a wife to a husband that just says, "Baby, I really respect you."
Because women simply do not buy that sentiment. They buy cards that express deep, abiding, unconditional love because that is what they value most.
They naturally project their own highest value onto their husbands. A wife thinks, if I tell him how much I love him and how my heart beats for him, it will fill his tank.
But his tank isn't designed for love fuel. It takes respect.
And the ultimate fascinating irony of this cultural blind spot involves the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin.
This is one of my favorite examples from the material. Aretha Franklin's iconic song, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, is a legendary foundational feminist anthem.
It's huge.
It is the ultimate musical cry of a powerful woman demanding respect from her man. It is culturally ingrained as a female empowerment song. But what most people don't know is the actual origin of the song.
It was originally written, recorded, and released 2 years prior by a man, the legendary Otis Redding.
Otis Redding wrote it.
Yes, Otis Redding wrote those lyrics as a desperate, soulful cry from the absolute bottom of his male psyche to his own wife. All I'm asking is for a little respect when I come home.
Aretha took the song, flipped the gender, and it became a massive global hit because women do want and deserve respect as human beings.
But Otis wrote it because for a man, it is not just a want, it is his primary existential need. He has to have it to survive the relationship.
So, if respect is the male equivalent of love, if it is the air they breathe, we have to look very closely at how we are instructed to give it. We have to go back to the source text that Eggerichs uses, specifically 1 Peter 3, verses 1 and 2.
In this historical passage, the instruction is given that wives are called to show respectful behavior, even to husbands who are disobedient to the word.
Translated into modern practical terms, that means husbands who are acting poorly, husbands who are being selfish, who are carnal, or who are completely undeserving of praise in that moment.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, this is where I have to push back hard.
Bring it on.
Because for a modern listener in the 21st century, telling a woman that she is obligated to unconditionally respect a man who is acting like a jerk, who is failing her emotionally, who is being completely insensitive, that sounds highly suspicious.
I get that.
That sounds exactly like telling a woman to be a doormat. How is this framework not just a dressed-up recipe for toxic subservience, or worse, a tool for enabling abuse?
It is the single most common and arguably the most valid pushback that Eggerichs receives on his work. It bristles against everything modern psychology tells us about boundaries.
Right.
But he is incredibly careful to explicitly define what unconditional respect actually means in practical application. Giving unconditional respect does not mean burying your brain in the sand.
It doesn't mean you can never disagree with your husband.
It absolutely does not mean you endure abuse, excuse infidelity, or blindly endorse bad behavior.
Then what does it actually look like? How do you practically respect a guy who is acting completely unlovable and arrogant?
You do it almost entirely through your tone and your facial expression. Eggerichs emphasizes that a wife can and should fiercely confront a man's unloving behavior.
She should hold him strictly accountable for his actions.
But she must do it with a respectful tone and a respectful countenance. It is the vast difference between sitting down and saying, I am really hurt and angry that you forgot our anniversary and we need to figure out how to fix this. Versus rolling your eyes, scoffing, crossing your arms, and saying you are a selfish, pathetic excuse for a husband who cares more about his stupid car than his own wife.
Ah, I see. You don't have to respect his actions in that heated moment, because his actions might be objectively terrible, but you must maintain a baseline respect for his position as your partner and as a human being.
Exactly. Eggerichs uses the phrase first among equals to describe the traditional male role. He uses a very stark analogy of a sinking ship.
The tight
When a passenger ship like the Titanic goes down, the unwritten, universally accepted rule of society is women and children first. The man is expected, without hesitation, to step back from the lifeboat, freeze in the dark ocean, and die so that his wife and family can live.
Because a husband historically and culturally carries that heavy, underlying, ultimate responsibility to protect and provide at the cost of his own life, he desperately desires the basic respect that accompanies that heavy burden.
If you strip him of all respect, treat him like a child, but still expect him to be the protector in the lifeboat, you completely crush his spirit.
That is a heavy analogy. So what actually happens internally when a wife doesn't control her tone, when she lets that eye-rolling, scoffing contempt bleed into her voice and her face during an argument?
The research suggests that the husband's reaction isn't just that he gets his feelings hurt. It triggers a deep, almost primal physiological and psychological terror.
It absolutely does. And this brings us to the core of the deep male fear. We know that what women traditionally fear most in a relationship is being unloved, abandoned, or emotionally disconnected.
But what men fear most, above all else, is contempt.
And there is staggering statistical data to back this up.
Eggerichs points to a national survey conducted by decision analysts. They took a diverse group of 400 men and asked them to choose between two terrible hypothetical scenarios.
Option A or option B?
Option A, to be left completely alone and unloved in the world. Option B, to feel inadequate and disrespected by everyone around you.
Think about the weight of that choice. Alone and unloved means true isolation. No affection, no warmth, no one who cares if you live or die.
It's a bleak existence, yet 74% of the men surveyed chose option A.
74%.
Given the choice, nearly three-quarters of men stated they would rather live their entire lives completely alone and entirely unloved rather than endure the torturous feeling of being inadequate and disrespected.
As Eggerichs distills it, to men, love is like food, but respect is like water. You can survive for weeks without food. You will die in days without water.
If respect is the water that keeps a man alive, then contempt is literal poison. And when a man feels poisoned by his wife's contempt, his physiological reaction is extreme.
The material brings in some incredible clinical research from Dr. John Gottman, who is widely considered one of the foremost marriage researchers in the world.
Gottman's love lab studies are legendary. He hooks couples up to physiological monitors measuring heart rate, blood pressure, sweat production, and cortisol levels, and then asks them to discuss a point of conflict in their marriage.
And Gottman's research reveals a staggering statistic. 85% of the time, the person who eventually stonewalls during a conflict is the husband.
Stonewalling is when a person just completely shuts down. They go quiet, they look away, their face goes blank, or they physically stand up and walk out of the room.
Which, to a woman whose air hose is already cut, feels like the ultimate unforgivable act of unloving abandonment. She is thinking, I am pouring my heart out, I am crying, I'm trying to fix this, and he is just staring at a spot on the wall like a sociopath.
But Gottman's lab data explains exactly why the stonewalling happens, and it comes down to a collision of raw physiology and social conditioning.
Think about how women are generally conditioned to resolve conflict. When a woman experiences a conflict with a close girlfriend, what is the protocol?
They sit down face to face, they verbalize all their feelings, they get everything out on the table, process the emotions, they both apologize, and then they physically hug.
It is a highly verbal processing event that ends in physical reconnection. So naturally, a wife tries to apply that exact same successful blueprint to her husband.
She initiates a conflict because she wants to keep the relationship up to date. She thinks, we have a blockage, if we just talk this out, we'll hash it out and we'll hug at the end.
But here is where the pink and blue languages collide catastrophically. Because she is frustrated with his recent behavior, she rarely approaches him like a peer or a friend during these moments.
She often approaches him more like a frustrated mother scolding a disobedient child. She brings a wave of negativity, a barrage of criticism, and a harsh, sharp tone.
Now, because she is biologically and socially wired for this kind of intense verbal processing, her body handles it well. Her heart rate during this loud confrontation remains relatively steady. She might be yelling, she might be crying, but physiologically, she is calm.
But inside the husband's body, according to the monitors in Gottman's lab, it is a 5-alarm biological fire.
It is absolute chaos. The husband's blood pressure skyrockets. His heart rate routinely spikes above 100 beats per minute, which is a clinical state called diffuse physiological arousal.
He is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. He feels completely engulfed by her wave of negativity. And because he translates her harsh criticism as pure contempt, his biological fight-or-flight system is fully triggered.
He is perceiving a mortal threat to his psychological survival. But he operates under a deeply ingrained male honor code. You do not physically fight your wife, and you do not scream venomous abuse at her.
He knows that if he engages while flooded with adrenaline, he is going to say something unforgivable or punch a hole in the drywall and make the situation 1,000 times worse.
Exactly. So to literally calm his racing heart, to force his blood pressure down, and to avoid a catastrophic blowout, his brain chooses flight. He stonewalls, he goes silent, he averts his eyes, or he retreats to the garage.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means a massive, tragic Shakespearean irony is playing out right now in millions of living rooms.
The wife pursues the argument, following down the hall, raising her voice, because she genuinely thinks confronting the issue is the most loving thing she could do to save their connection. She just wants to clear the air.
The husband walks away and shuts the door because he genuinely thinks withdrawing is the most honorable thing he can do to keep the peace and prevent permanent damage.
She thinks he is being a cold, unfeeling monster who doesn't care about her pain. He thinks she's being a relentless, contemptuous enemy who hates him.
And neither of them is right. They are both acting out of a twisted form of goodwill, but because they are speaking pink and blue, they are utterly trapped on the crazy cycle, spinning faster and faster.
Which brings us to the ultimate million-dollar question. If both sides are totally misinterpreting the other's good intentions, if they are both physiologically flooded and firmly entrenched in this loop, how does it end?
Someone has to be the one to hit the brakes.
Who goes first?
This is the ultimate stalemate of modern marriage. You have husbands sitting there, arms tightly crossed, completely shut down, saying, I will gladly love her unconditionally and be the romantic hero she wants just as soon as she stops nagging and starts respecting me.
And you have wives sitting there, arms crossed, saying, I will respect him and treat him like a king just as soon as he steps up, communicates, and loves me the way I need.
It is a Mexican standoff with human emotions. Nobody wants to lower their weapon first.
And taking that stance guarantees mutual destruction. Because by demanding the other person go first, you are making your spouse entirely responsible for both sides of the equation.
You are demanding they fill your tank with their precious resources before you will even consider giving them a drop of yours. It's a hostage negotiation, not a marriage.
So Eggerichs grappled with this. He prayed about it, he researched it, and the rule he came up with for who is obligated to go first is brilliant in its absolute simplicity.
The one who sees themselves as the most mature.
That is the rule. If you believe you have the better understanding of the situation, if you're the one who bought the book, or if you're the one listening to this deep dive right now and understanding these mechanics, you have to take the first step. You forfeit the right to wait for your spouse to initiate the healing.
And for wives, taking this first step often requires a massive, painful perspective shift regarding how they speak to their husbands.
The material shares this incredibly powerful, sobering anecdote about a wife who had come to Eggerichs for counseling. She just couldn't stop showing disdain and contempt for her husband.
And she felt completely justified in her anger because of his undeniable flaws and failures.
Right. She was firmly stuck in that cultural mindset of, he needs to earn my respect, and right now, based on his actions, he is actively earning my contempt.
So Sarah Eggerichs, Emerson's wife, was talking with this woman, and she asked her a single, piercing question. She looked at her and said, what if your son grew up and married someone exactly like you?
Wow. Just let that sink in for a second. If you have kids, imagine that.
The woman was completely stunned. Her mouth literally fell open and she was speechless. She realized, in a blinding flash of empathy, that she would never want a woman to crush her own son's spirit the way she was actively, daily crushing her husband's spirit.
She would be absolutely horrified if a daughter-in-law spoke to her boy with that kind of scolding, belittling, eye-rolling contempt.
It is a devastating mirror that forces you to look at your own behavior completely stripped of your own justifications.
We so easily naturally see what is being done to us, long before we ever recognize what we are doing to our mate.
Exactly. Breaking the cycle means wives need to adopt the rigorous habit of pausing before they speak, especially when they are frustrated, and asking themselves, is what I'm about to say going to come across as respectful to the man I married, or is my tone going to sound exactly like a mother scolding a toddler?
Yeah. And husbands have an equally difficult, vital task. They must learn the discipline of looking past their wife's apparent contempt.
They have to look past the harsh tone, the nagging, and the criticism, and use their blue decoder ring to hear her hidden cry for love.
When she is complaining that he works too much or that he didn't help with the dishes, what she's actually saying is, I feel disconnected from you. I feel overwhelmed. Please love me.
A mature husband must force himself to respond to that underlying plea with understanding and physical reassurance rather than retreating behind his stone wall of silence.
But I have to ask, doesn't going first feel incredibly risky? If you are the one to offer that olive branch, if a wife forces herself to swallow her pride and speak respectfully when she is boiling with anger, or if a husband forces himself to stay in the room and offer a hug when he feels verbally assaulted, what if the partner just swats it away?
What if they take advantage of that vulnerability?
Exactly.
It is intensely risky. It requires overriding your biological fight-or-flight system. It requires making yourself completely vulnerable at the exact moment your every instinct is screaming at you to protect yourself.
But you have to look at the alternative. What is the alternative to taking that risk?
The alternative is staying on the crazy cycle forever. The alternative is living in a cold, loveless house. The alternative is becoming part of that 50% divorce statistic.
You either risk the olive branch or you ride the cycle into the ground.
But the promise of this entire framework is that, assuming you are dealing with two good-willed people, two people who fundamentally do love each other and don't maliciously want to cause pain, meeting your partner's deepest psychological need almost always acts as a powerful catalyst.
When a wife takes a deep breath and gives her husband unconditional respect, even when he's grumpy, it instantly fills his air hose.
The pressure drops, he can finally breathe. And when a man can breathe, when he feels honored and adequate, his natural, honorable instinct is to fiercely cherish, protect, and love the woman who respects him.
Conversely, when a husband forces himself to stay engaged and gives his wife unconditional love and reassurance even when she is nagging, it fills her air hose.
She feels emotionally secure. And when a woman feels profoundly secure and loved, her natural instinct is to admire, support, and respect the man who makes her feel so safe.
Meeting their need acts as a trigger that prompts them to finally meet yours.
It transforms from a cycle of destruction into a self-feeding loop of connection. Eggerichs calls it the energizing cycle.
As we wrap up this deep dive, let's just briefly recap the intense journey we've been on today.
We started by recognizing the invisible, competing engines of conflict. The fundamental female need for love versus the fundamental male need for respect.
We identified the mechanical trap of the crazy cycle, how withholding one resource absolutely guarantees the loss of the other.
We decoded the pink and blue languages, realizing that a husband's withdrawal usually isn't a lack of love, but a physiological defense mechanism against contempt.
And a wife's harsh criticism isn't necessarily a lack of respect, but a desperate, thrashing cry for emotional connection.
We learned that women need love like they need air, and men need respect like they need water.
And ultimately, breaking that toxic cycle requires the maturity to take the first step, assuming goodwill in your partner's actions, and translating your feelings into the specific language they were wired to receive.
It is a profound paradigm shift in perspective. It requires grueling daily practice, immense patience, and swallowing a lot of pride. But the rewards, a stable, deeply connected, energized partnership where both people can finally breathe, are entirely worth the effort.
It really is a masterclass in radical empathy. And as we leave you today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your week.
This is an important one.
We spent this entire deep dive looking at how the male need for respect functions inside a marriage, inside that intimate romantic bubble. But think about the broader societal implications of this psychology for a moment.
Yeah, outside the home.
If a man's deepest, most primal psychological value is respect, if, as the survey showed, nearly 3/4 of men would literally rather die alone and unloved than endure feeling inadequate and disrespected, how does this change the way we interact with men outside the home?
How does this change the way we parent? Think about raising teenage sons.
Are we disciplining our boys in ways that we think will make them feel unloved, but are actually accidentally communicating pure contempt and permanently crushing their spirits?
Think about managing male colleagues, team members, or employees in the workplace.
Are we, as a modern culture, accidentally starving half the population of their psychological water? Because we increasingly insist on interacting with everyone solely through the pink filter of love, empathy, and verbal emotional processing.
Are we triggering widespread workplace stonewalling and male withdrawal simply because we no longer speak the language of respect and hierarchy?
It is something to think about the next time you find yourself in a tense standoff, whether it's across the kitchen island or across the boardroom table. Just pause and ask yourself, are they suffocating? And whose air hose are you standing on?